Yeah, Shane, I had a question. So, a lot of what you described actually was eerily familiar with my experience. You mentioned a lot of your experience was kind of in regards to reflecting on humanity. Could you extrapolate a little on that? Because that was pretty the humanity aspect plus how we form memories and emotions. That literally describes 99% of my experience on ayahuasca. Like reflecting on humanity and trying to understand the human psyche with emotions, memory, and time. That was mine. So when you talked about humanity, I'm really curious.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could remember all of it. And every time I tried to write it down, when you say like your subconscious would give you a different angle of
Mm-hmm.
looking at it, every time I'd go to write down like what my experience was, I would see it was like almost like the trickster part of my brain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I'd get to the end of like what I think was a conclusion, and then be like, "But look at it this way," and then and it would just kind of change my perception of all of it, and it would.
Yeah, it's constantly moving.
It's like that floater in your eye.
But my experience, my like subjective experience, not necessarily what I think was actually
Mm-hmm.
happening, but my subjective experience of the trip was something about how there is. So imagine that there's like this kind of fabric of data and like mathematical properties that are just like recombining themselves and stumbling across themselves and like forming these new possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's like where, so from my DMT experiences, like I've kind of seen this thing, and it seems like that's where this universe came from. Like the Big Bang was just like two different existing, like what we would call laws of physics, crashing into each other and creating a new one. And that's this like Big Bang that happens. But this is like, this is one of an infinite number of universes that, and all of the information from that is being filtered back into this fabric and pattern that is basically kind of this realm of every possibility of everything that there is. And so within our own minds, we also have the, like anytime someone goes to pitch a TV show or whatever, they're like, it's like this with this. Okay. And you combine these two ideas, and then you have this new world that you've built. And I think that's much what creativity is combining these set ideas and stories that you already have in your mind and creating these new ideas from them. And then that new world that you've built influences who you are and the cognitive space on a more universal level. And it was that this was this inevitable process that you couldn't stop from happening. Like these mathematical properties, they couldn't stop from combining. You can't stop having ideas. And it's just creating these new universes in this thing that we would consider God, or some supervisor inside of our own subconscious, is itself like doesn't know its own origins and just kind of gained its own consciousness once it got this level of complexity, and it can't stop creating these new worlds and ideas and consciousness, and it's spread so thin all of the time that it was like an addiction or something like that it was like addicted to creating these new worlds because it had to, and
Like trying to discover and understand itself.
yeah, I guess. And then maybe it wasn't clear, but like humans do this too, and we stretch ourselves thin, and we get like really addicted to like these big sensations and like the Big Bang and the mind blowing idea, and often we can get ourselves in over our heads and everything else. And so it was as if like this thing was like showing me that it was like stretched thin due to this addiction of creating all of these like new worlds that I had, and it related to my life of struggling with alcohol addiction, which I had just like quit drinking right before that, and then that related to the human condition of like the universe being, or of not the humanity having all of these addiction and compulsion problems, and it was like all of it was a reflection of the same thing. It was like a reflection of my individual life, a reflection of all of humanity, a reflection of this universe, all kind of tied together, all at the exact same moment. And I remember, like, right before, and I've always been such a skeptic of the purging, like people romanticizing the vomit, and to me, it's always like, it's great to like reframe things in a positive way and accept these negative things that we have to go to. But some people like it's like almost like a fucking fetish for them. And so I've always been like a little skeptical of that. But I'll have to say that it's like that in that moment, like I felt connected with all of the suffering by being stretched thin with my own and of all of humanity, with my own suffering, of my own impulse controls, with this universe or multiverse or math or whatever that is conscious, that is cranking out these new combinations of universes that it doesn't. It's creating too many, and it can't care for the ones that it already has. And it was like I was creating too many projects for myself and couldn't care for. And that's like humanity's doing that with the world and like global warming and all of that. And it was just like I felt all of that. I guess suffering. I didn't, at the same time. And then that's when I like purged, and it was. And I hate to admit this, but it was just like this beautiful. It was like it was the most fucking painful. Like it was so preposterously awful.
No, Sean's is worse.
So absurd how awful it was that it was like there was just this deep beauty in it, and then the purging was just like, after that, I just like have never felt better. It was just like this sense of peace and calm and like acceptance, and that like it was kind of gonna work out, or it's not. I don't know.
Yeah. Did you mouth purge or butt purge?
Oh, I mouth purged. Yeah, I haven't done the butt
Good
purge.
choice.
But imagine the beautiful tale that I'll have about that.
Literally.
I'll tell you this: I butt purged most of the week, and then I did.
Yes, he did.
I did a hero dose on Friday, which got me.
Did you shit your pants, or did you make it to the bathroom?
No,
I shit my pants.
That's how deep you were.
It's ridiculous.
I made it to the bathroom, thankfully. But I got to tell you, it is one magical medicine that can turn both vomit and diarrhea into a spiritual experience.
Yeah, as long as you don't think you're trying to shit out a dinosaur egg, you're happy.